Have you ever noticed that in every single meeting, there is always that one person? They sit there, eyes focused, expression unreadable. They listen to everything. They react to nothing. And somehow, when the meeting ends, you still have no idea what they were thinking. I'm Berlin. I work in corporate. And for a long time, I was obsessed with figuring out why some of the smartest people in the room never open their mouth. Here's what I found out. We live in a workplace culture that rewards noise. The louder you are, the more visible you become. The more visible you are, the more you get promoted, recognized, and remembered. There is this unspoken rule in modern corporate environments that says, if you are not speaking, you are not contributing. If you are not dominating the conversation, you are not a leader. Silence gets misread as weakness. Silence gets misread as disengagement. People who stay quiet in meetings get labeled. They get overlooked. They get passed over for opportunities, not because they lack talent, but because they don't perform their talent out loud. But here's what nobody is talking about. That silence, it is not empty, it is full. And psychology actually explains exactly what is going on inside the minds of people who never speak in meetings. What I'm about to break down changed the way I see my entire office. The first reason is something psychologists call evaluation anxiety. This is a real, documented fear of being judged by others while performing or speaking in a group setting, and it goes way deeper than just being nervous. When someone with evaluation anxiety sits in a meeting, their brain is not just thinking about what to say. Their brain is simultaneously running a worst-case simulation. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I sound stupid? What if someone disagrees and challenges me in front of everyone? That mental simulation is exhausting. It is cognitively draining before a single word leaves their mouth. So they choose silence, not because they have nothing to say, but because the psychological cost of speaking feels too high in that moment. These are not weak people. These are people whose brains are working overtime, protecting them from perceived social threat. The second reason is introversion, and most people completely misunderstand what introversion actually means. Introversion is not shyness. Introversion is not social awkwardness. Introversion, according to research in personality psychology, is about where you get your energy from. Introverts process information internally. They think before they speak. They need time to fully develop a thought before they feel confident enough to express it out loud. In a fast-moving meeting where people are throwing ideas around and interrupting each other, an introvert's processing style simply cannot keep up with that pace. By the time they have fully formed a complete, thoughtful response, the conversation has already moved on. So they stay quiet, and that silence gets misread as having nothing to offer, when in reality, they are carrying the most refined perspective in the entire room. The third reason is low self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is your belief in your own ability to succeed in a specific situation. It was developed as a concept by psychologist Albert Bandura, and it is directly tied to whether or not you take action. Someone with low self-efficacy in a meeting setting genuinely does not believe that their contribution will be valued or received well, even if they know the answer, even if they have the solution. That internal belief of it won't matter anyway, or they won't take me seriously overrides their decision to speak. This is not arrogance or laziness. This is a self-concept issue. They have internalized a story about their own value, and that story is keeping them silent in rooms where their voice is actually needed. The fourth reason is something called cognitive overload. Here is what happens in a typical corporate meeting. There is a presentation happening. Someone is talking. Someone else is interrupting. There are emails coming in on laptops. Side conversations are happening. Decisions are being made in real time. For certain people, this level of simultaneous stimulation is genuinely overwhelming to their nervous system. Cognitive overload happens when the amount of information coming in exceeds the brain's capacity to process it in the moment. And when someone is in cognitive overload, they go quiet, not because they are checked out, but because their brain is working so hard to absorb everything that speaking becomes impossible. These are often the most detail-oriented, deeply analytical people on the team. They catch things everyone else misses. They just cannot catch those things and speak at the same time. The fifth reason is strategic self-monitoring. This one is the most underestimated of all. Some people who stay silent in meetings are not struggling at all. They are watching. They are calculating. They are using what psychologists call high self-monitoring behavior, which means they are constantly observing the social environment, reading power dynamics, noticing who is aligning with who, and deciding very deliberately when and whether to speak. These people understand something that most people miss entirely. In corporate environments, speaking at the wrong time or in the wrong way can actually damage your credibility more than staying silent. So they wait. They collect information. They identify the right moment. And when they do speak, it lands differently because everything they say has been filtered through an incredibly sharp awareness of the room. That is not passivity. That is strategic communication. And it is genuinely powerful. Now here is where I need to break something down, because there is a myth that has been floating around corporate culture for way too long. People assume that the employees who never speak in meetings are disengaged. They assume they do not care, or they are not smart enough to contribute, or they are too scared to handle the corporate world. That is completely wrong, and psychology backs that up entirely. Research on social comparison theory shows that people who observe more and speak less in group settings often have a more accurate read on group dynamics than those who dominate conversations. Studies on emotional regulation show that people who remain calm and quiet under pressure tend to have stronger internal locus of control, meaning they do not need external validation to feel confident in their own thinking. And research on observational learning shows that highly observant individuals process environmental information at a deeper level than those who are externally focused on how they are presenting the. Menzel's silence in a meeting is not the absence of intelligence. It is often a different expression of it. Here is the thing I want you to sit with. In psychology, silence is not the absence of thought. It is the presence of processing. The person who has not said a single word in your last 3 team meetings may be the person who goes home and solves the problem everyone else was talking about. They are not absent from the conversation. They are having the conversation internally, and sometimes that is where the real thinking happens. The next time you are in a meeting and you notice someone sitting quietly, Do not assume they have nothing to offer. Ask yourself what they might be holding back and whether the environment you are in actually makes it safe for them to share it. Because sometimes the loudest voice in the room is not the most useful one. And sometimes the silence you are misreading is actually the most aware, most thoughtful, most underestimated presence at the table. If you are into understanding people at this level, the psychology behind behavior that we never talk about out loud, then subscribe. There is a lot more of this coming.